Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi. Amma ba'du. I greet the Mali students, guests, listeners. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our Saturday morning ta'aleem. Today we're looking at chapter 2, verse 185. Chapter 2, verse 185. And we're going to continue to make comments or presentations preparing for the month of Ramadan. We'll come back to the book, The Treasure Under the Wall, after the month of Ramadan. So, let's jump right in. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Shahru Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. الذي, that which أنزل فيه القرآن. The Quran was sent down in it. هدى للناس, as guidance for mankind. وبينات, and clarity. من الهدى, clarity from the guidance. والفرقان, and the criterion. So I want to begin with a short explanation, from al-Ma'ani, the science ilm al-Ma'ani. We're looking at Balagha, and Balagha consists of three main sciences. One is ilm al-Ma'ani, that's the science of structure and meaning. We have ilm al-Bayan, the science of clarity, and ilm al-Badi, the science of embellishment. So let's take a look at a piece here from ilm al-Ma'ani. I think it would be good for the students. I think it would be very, very helpful. And some things that I have been bringing to you all's attention in the class, so I want to show it here. And this principle of taqdeem, this principle of taqdeem. Taqdeemu shahri Ramadan. Taqdeem is bringing forward. We're talking about the first thing that's mentioned in the verse, which is really the key, the essence or the crux of the whole verse. That's the taqdeem. So the taqdeem here is Shahru Ramadan. That's what's mentioned first, Shahru Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. It's at the head of the phrase. It gives it exclusive focus. Exclusive focus, as if saying it is Ramadan in particular that is the month. This is a typical bringing forth taqdeem للتخصيص والتعظيم. for specification and magnification, exalting the month beyond other months. So it's this idea of Taqdeem. It's mentioning the month of Ramadan, exclusive to all other months in terms of the Qur'an coming down. Now, I may reiterate this a couple of times throughout the presentation, reflecting on last week, and saying that Ramadan, I want you to remember, is a ritual month, and Ramadan is also a calendar month. So we know, and how do we know the difference? There is some type of indication, some type of Kareem to know the difference between the ritual month and the calendar month. So we know that the Qur'an came down over a period of 23 years in various months, not just in the month of Ramadan. But here we're saying that this month of Ramadan is exclusive to all other months in terms of the Qur'an coming down, the Qur'an being revealed. That's a hint that we're not talking calendar months. So, الذي أنزل فيه القرآن is الجملة الموصولية. It consists of a relative phrase. The month is defined by what occurred in it, not by its time, not by its time alone. Now I'm going to explain as I go. The silatul mawsul, the relative phrase. So now this is a jumla. This is a jumlatul mawsuliyah. This alladhi is the relative noun. This unzila fihi al-Qur'an is the relative phrase. So we have the relative noun, and then we have the relative phrase. So in the reading, it's saying that the month is defined by what occurred in it, not by its time alone. The silatul mawsul, the relative phrase, attaches Ramadan's identity to revelation. So it's Sharafun Aradiyun, its accidental or derived nobility is entirely from the Qur'an being sent down in it. So let me show you. The month of Ramadan, the relative noun, and the relative phrase. So this is the relative phrase that's being attached to the month of Ramadan. It's being joined by the relative noun. And in doing so, what we're saying, it gives the identity. it gives the identity of the month to month of Ramadan being identified to revelation. It's associated with or connected with revelation this month. So we're not speaking particular in terms of a calendar month. Let's look at al-Bayan. So there is no explicit formal tashbih, the principle of tashbih, simile, with an adad to tashbih. Adad to tashbih is the particle of comparison such as mithlan or ka and others. In this exact clause, there is no likeness showing in this clause or this phrase or what we're presenting today. So there's no overt simile structure in the wording that we are presenting. However, on a broader rhetorical level, al-Huda, guidance. Al-Huda is treated as a direction, ittijahu, in a confusing landscape. So Huda, guidance, evokes the image of a guide in the night without spelling it out. So that's, in a broader sense, more indirect sense, or implied sense of simile. But for right now, of course, if we're reading Qur'an, we may not be able to see that. Al-Istiara, the metaphor, Hudan Linnasi, guidance for mankind. Here, Hudan is more than pointing directions. The literal idea of Hudan is to point something in a certain direction. That's guidance. But it's a metaphor for comprehensive tawjihun. It's a metaphor for orientation, tawjihun. That orientation is ruhiyun, spiritual, wa akhlaqiyun, moral, wa tashri'i, legal. A legal, moral, spiritual orientation. This is the how the word hudan is used here. Not so much as pointing a direction in the literal sense, the physical sense. The original literal sense of al-hudan, leading someone along a path, is bold. This word, I want to reiterate from previous presentations, you would notice it's used quite often when you're studying Ragib. When you're looking at the dictionary of Ragib, al-Isfahani, you will see the word istiara. Istiara is used. Ustaira, Ustaira, you're running to that word a lot. It's bald. For the Qur'an's role in leading humanity from dalal, misguidance, to al-istiqama, rectitude. Converting physical pathfinding into existential, spiritual, moral, legal, and ethical direction. So we're seeing here how the speech of Allah, the Quranic speech, this lesson on Balagha should give us a greater appreciation and a clearer reading of the Quran. And it shows us how in the speech, how Allah takes those things that we know physically and borrow the language from the obvious physical existence and forming language, and then applying it to something that's more spiritual or abstract in nature, the language. When we're looking at Aragib, we will see this when we're giving the original meaning, and you want to pay close attention to it when you're studying Aragib. I'm talking to the students directly now. When you're studying Aragib, you want to pay close attention in many instances to the origin, the original meaning that he gives of a word. Then notice how that word may take a shift from its original meaning to a Quranic idea or meaning. It shifts when it comes into the Quran. Notice how it shifts, yet it keeps its attribute in terms of its original meaning. For example, here, Hudan, in terms of pointing directions along a physical path, is going to keep that meaning even when it shifts into Quranic usage. Now, into the usage in this verse, it's going to shift. So in the spiritual, moral, and legal orientation, which becomes the path now, it still has the idea of pointing in a direction. So take your time when you're looking at Ragib. Do not just dismiss the meaning when it's given that meaning in origin, and don't lose it. Keep it. Don't be too quick to grab an Arabic English dictionary and you lose it. You lose the meaning because you begin to reflect on English words, not the Arabic words. You want to learn to think from the Arabic text, not from the English text. Inspiration is going to come from the Arabic text. That's where the inspiration comes from. And that's what we want when we go into the Quran. We want to be inspired. Continue with al-istiara, al-furqan, the criterion, as a metaphorical criterion. Literally, furqan comes from farqun, meaning separation. That's the literal meaning, is separation. But here, it is a metaphor for an intellectual and spiritual scalpel. Misrahun. Misrah is an instrument, a scalpel, that you may find a tool of the surgeon that separates truth from falsehood and right from wrong. It's an Akbario-Warithian, a spiritual, intellectual scalpel. Okay? The physical act of separating things is borrowed for conceptual distinction. So the physical act of using the scalpel is now borrowed. It's borrowed for conceptual distinction to distinguish now truth from falsehood or right from wrong, and other distinctions. So the Qur'an is portrayed, the Qur'an now, here's the shift. The Qur'an is displayed as an instrument that cuts, is displayed as a scalpel between competing claims and paths. Looking at the principle of al-majaz, where majaz and mursal is like an implied figure of speech. In hudan lin-nasi, guidance for mankind. Calling the Quran itself hudan. Hudan. It's implied here we have the sababu al-hidayah, the cause of guidance, the book. The cause of guidance is named with the effect. The cause of guidance, which is the book, is the cause of guidance. It's named with the effect, guidance. It's, instead of saying sababul al-hidayah, a cause of guidance. Let's go back, look at that verse so you won't be lost. Instead of saying the Qur'an, instead of saying is the cause of guidance for mankind, instead of saying that, we're actually saying that the cause and the effect is mentioned in the idea of Hudan. The cause and the effect. So instead of saying the cause of guidance, the verse attributes guidance directly to the Quran, intensifying its impact. The Quran is the cause and the effect of guidance. Al-Kinaya, in defining Ramadan by revelation, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan in which the Qur'an was revealed is not only informative, it is an indirect expression for the ennoblement and magnification of the month. This is what it's alluding to. By attributing the descent of the Quran to this month, the verse indirectly signals its uniquely honored status among months, without explicitly asserting Ramadan is more noble than any other month, than all other months. It's alluding to that without explicitly saying that. Denial of universality and responsibility. In the expression Hudan Linnas, describing it as guidance for mankind is a kinaya for universal address and responsibility. All humanity is in principle the mukhatab. Mukhatab is those addressed or spoken to. Khatib or khatib is the one who's speaking. Mukhatab are those who are being spoken to of this revelation. So all humanity is being spoken to of this revelation. When we're saying in the expression Hudan Linnas, implying that no group, this is the implication, this is the kinaya, it implies that no group can claim exclusive propriety, access to divine guidance. It's not for any one particular group, sect, religion, so forth and so on. So this Quran is not for the quote unquote Muslim only. There's also a kinaya for the Khan, the ultimate judgment, for the Khan. Calling the Quran for the Khan is an elusive way of saying that people will be judged by their alignment with what it distinguishes as truth and falsehood, as haqq and batil. The word does not say this is the standard by which you will be assessed, but it implies that your standing hinges on how you stand relative to that for the Khan. So it's alluding to how you will be judged. Now, try to keep in consideration what we have said in terms of the al-ma'ani and al-bayan. Ilm al-bayani and ilm al-bayan. kind of sets the foundation for our commentary. So you may want to go back, listen again. If it's going fast for you, you can listen again to the recording and see how this Ilmul Bayan and Ilmul Ma'ani lays the foundation for this Akbario-Warithian Commentary. This is commentary. It's based upon the readings of Ibn Arabi, which is called Akbarian reading, and the readings of Imam Warithian Muhammad, W.D. Muhammad, which I have coined. I have coined this commentary as Akbario-Warithian. It's not a copy and paste of either, but it's an extraction from the reading of both, intertwined in this commentary that I am presenting. So this is a phrase that I have coined, Akbario-Warithian. This verse describes an inner month within the heart. An inner month within the heart. Ramadan is a calendar month, and Ramadan is also a ritual month. It describes an inner month within the heart, during which the light of Qur'an descends into the perfected human receptivity. Rather than referring only to the historical calendar month. Keep in consideration with the Ilmul Bayan. In this inner descent, the Qur'an serves as guidance for all the faculties of the soul, providing clear proofs within consciousness and acting as a criterion for the Qur'an by which the heart distinguishes between the real and illusions. Socially, the verse outlines how Allah elevates an entire community from confusion to a conscious, disciplined, and productive life. It represents a season both in the soul and in the life of a community. A time when individuals undergo intense trials, allowing what is corrupt to be burned away, while what is sound is revealed. This is all part of the ritual month of Ramadan. However, in a lot of the rituals, the Muslim or Islamic rituals, it's a very, very, very thin line between what's real and what's illusion. That we take the ritual many times to be real. But it's not real, it's a ritual. That's because we actually become the ritual. And then there's a point that our being, our mind began to question, Am I performing the ritual, or is the ritual performing me? Let's go back. Let's get back. The shifting of Ramadan through the lunar calendar signifies that this purifying discipline must eventually touch every season of our lives. Youth and old age, times of ease and hardship, long days and short, etc. This ensures that no part of our existence is left outside of Allah's training. The descent of the Qur'an is a continual process. It just doesn't happen once over 14,000 years ago. The descent of the Qur'an is a continual process that occurs whenever a heart becomes a vessel for divine communication. This is a living, recurring event. Now, it can occur anytime, but we are taking this idea that we're given and putting it in a ritual month, especially during Ramadan. This recurring event occurs when the Qur'an comes down on the heart again. It represents not just an ontological descent from a higher, honorable, divine realm to a lower human one, but also a transition from pure light to human social reality. The Quran enters a soul fasting from worldly desires, allowing the divine word to take command. This process illustrates pure guidance flowing into a prepared human consciousness. The individual soul and community can transform into a state akin to that of Miriam, or Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary, rejecting corrupt influences while being nurtured directly by revelation from Allah. Yes, you see, this is the month of Ramadan. It's ritual, yes, but it's also real. So this is Mary, rejecting corrupt influences. We extract from this real idea, put it in the ritual sense of fasting, but we fast for real within the ritual. Rejecting corrupt influences while being nurtured directly by revelation from Allah. Metaphorically, the Ummah community of Muhammad can be seen as the woman Allah raised above all women, representing the community or soul that Allah chooses as the vessel for the Qur'an, referred to as the Word and Spirit of Allah. The phrase guidance for all people indicates that the descending message addresses the entirety of the human constitution, intellect, imagination, desire, and body, not just belief. Every individual is guided in their moral and ethical functions by the light of the Qur'an when it enters their heart. The Qur'an and Ramadan are not specific to any tribe or ethnicity. Rather, they speak to the shared human nature that Allah has bestowed upon all people. Even when we're speaking of the community of Muhammad, the Ummah of Muhammad, this Ummah includes all people. It's speaking to the shared human nature that Allah has bestowed upon all people. Muhammad came as a mercy to all people, to all creation. Understand this. Consequently, the discipline practiced during Ramadan aims to cultivate universal human qualities within us, rather than a specific Muslim ethnic identity. Clear signs of guidance. Clear signs of guidance, bayinat, manifest as evident inner experiences, revelations, certainties, and harmonies that emerge in the heart once it adopts a Quranic character. These clear signs represent principles that we must study, test, and apply in various aspects of life, including social interactions, economics, education, and leadership. The inner criterion for the calm is the heart's God-given ability to distinguish between the real and the illusions, as mentioned earlier. This ability allows us to allocate due measure in our actions and judgments, especially when we can distinguish between what's real and what's not real, what's guidance and what's deception. It serves as an inner and social power of discriminating, functioning not just as a criterion that designates what is halal and haram, just not what's right and wrong. Rather, it is the soul's capacity to distinguish between the real and the illusion, the sacred and the profane, principles of and mere habits. And true unity versus conformity to the crowd. The Quranic concept of Furqan exposes the manipulative aspects of language, myths, and symbols that have been used either to exploit or uplift humanity. The manipulative aspects. It safeguards the community from being engineered or herded by hidden powers. In essence, Ramadan is a recurring season of purification during which our original nature is reactivated and renewed. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum.